Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. If you've been following the news lately, you've probably heard about a new stimulus idea that's been making headlines, a $5,000 Doge stimulus check. But what exactly is this Doge dividend, and will it ever actually become a reality? Today, we're going to break down what we know about this new proposal, who qualifies, where the money will come from, and whether or not it's really going to happen. So, let's dive into all the details. First, let's talk about what exactly the Doge stimulus check is and where the money would come from. The idea behind the Doge dividend comes from former President Donald Trump, who proposed the plan during a speech in February 2025. Trump introduced the concept of a $5,000 stimulus check that would be tied to savings identified by a newly created federal initiative called DOGE, which stands for the Department of Government Efficiency. This initiative, led by Elon Musk, aims to reduce government waste, streamline federal systems, and modernize outdated technologies. According to DOGE's own reports, the initiative has already saved a staggering $130 billion so far, with a long-term goal of cutting $1 trillion in federal spending. The proposed DOGE dividend would not be funded by deficit spending, like many previous stimulus checks, but rather from these identified cost savings. This means that the money for the proposed stimulus check would essentially come from government waste reductions, rather than increasing the national debt. This approach is definitely different from the previous federal stimulus efforts we've seen in the past few years. Now, you're probably wondering, who would actually qualify for this DOGE stimulus check? Well, it looks like the eligibility criteria for the DOGE dividend are a bit more selective than the broad eligibility requirements of previous pandemic-related payments. The plan currently outlines that only households that pay more in federal taxes than they receive in credits would be eligible. That means households with a net positive tax burden would qualify, while those who are in the lower income brackets and pay little to no federal income tax in 2024 likely wouldn't qualify for this stimulus. Another important point is that the payments would be issued on a per-household basis, meaning one check would go to each household, rather than individual payments. Social Security recipients could qualify, but only if they meet federal tax obligations. Unfortunately, lower-income Americans who don't have much of a tax burden wouldn't receive a DOGE check under the current eligibility criteria. But when can we expect to see these DOGE stimulus checks if they do get approved? Well, as much as there's been a lot of buzz around the idea, there's no official timeline for when any payments would actually be issued. Elon Musk himself has acknowledged that Congress will need to approve any disbursements before they can happen, and so far, no legislation has been introduced in Congress to authorize the payments. In fact, there's no set date, and no official infrastructure is in place for distributing these checks just yet. So, don't expect a $5,000 check anytime soon. While the idea is generating a lot of attention, it's still just a proposal at this stage. We'll have to wait and see what happens next. Now, the big question, is this $5,000 DOGE dividend even realistic? Well, the idea originally came from James Fishback, CEO of Azoria Partners, who suggested that taxpayers should be rewarded for identifying and cutting government waste. Musk responded to the idea with cautious interest, saying he would check with the president about the possibility. While the DOGE initiative claims to have saved billions, there are some doubts about the accuracy of those savings figures. Multiple investigative reports, including one from WHYY, have raised questions about whether those savings are as substantial as the DOGE team claims, with some estimating that the reported savings may be overstated by billions of dollars. There are also critics who argue that the money could be better used in other ways, such as reducing the federal deficit or funding essential services that need more financial support. For example, Judge Glock from the Manhattan Institute has warned that this stimulus could fuel inflation and lead to unnecessary spending. Similarly, Elaine Kammark from the Brookings Institution has dismissed the plan, arguing that there isn't enough funding available to make it viable in the long run. Speaking of inflation, let's dive into another important concern. Could the DOGE stimulus check actually cause inflation? Supporters of the plan, including Fishback, argue that the payments would be fiscally neutral because they would come from cuts in government spending, not new debt. According to them, there's no risk of inflation because the funds are coming from savings, not borrowing. However, there are mixed opinions on this issue. Some economic analysts fear that giving out a large lump sum payment could increase consumer spending, which might lead to rising prices. On the other hand, others argue that if the payments are targeted towards higher-earning households, the inflationary risks could be minimized since these households are less likely to spend all of the money immediately. So, is the DOGE stimulus check likely to happen? Right now, the proposal is still just that, a proposal. While it has garnered significant attention and support from certain groups, the future of the DOGE dividend depends on a few key factors. For one, DOGE will need to prove that it has genuinely achieved substantial cost savings in government spending. Then, Congress will need to pass legislation to authorize the payments. The eligibility criteria will also need to be clearly defined, and a secure distribution system will need to be put in place to get the money to those who qualify. At this point, we don't know when, or even if, the DOGE stimulus check will become a reality. But for now, it remains a proposal without a set payment date. To sum it up, the $5,000 DOGE dividend proposal is certainly an interesting idea, but it's still in the early stages and faces a lot of uncertainty. While the idea of rewarding taxpayers for identifying government waste is appealing to some, there are many hurdles to overcome before it can become reality. For now, we'll have to keep an eye on official updates and congressional announcements to see if this proposal gains traction and moves forward. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found this information helpful, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends and family so they can stay informed as well. We'll be keeping you updated on any new developments, so don't forget to stay tuned. Until next time, take care, stay informed, and keep an eye on what's happening with the DOGE stimulus check.